Hi, this is Cindy Kendall, and we have page 10 to finish. This page has some really odd things that we need to put into it, but please be sure to include this page because it includes the intergovernmental expenditures, salaries and wages, long-term and short-term debt, calculation of your debt capacity, and then the last part is going to be the cash and investments for June 30, and it's totaled in a little different way. Here's the intergovernmental expenditures where even though they're included in part 2, all of the breakdowns by department, now we want to break them out just for those expenditures that you're giving to another government. Maybe you pay the county for your sheriff's protection, or maybe you pay the county to take care of your highways. If you do not have any of this activity, please enter zeros for each of these lines so that the state knows that you have actually looked at this portion of the report. The next part, number 4, we're going to look at the salaries and wages. Now, this should be the gross wages that you're giving to a person before any of the deductions are taken out, and it should include your council, your mayor, pool, any seasonal people that you have should all be put here. If you do the annual salary publication requirement required on an annual basis, if you do that on the fiscal year basis, that should tie to this total. If you do it on the calendar year basis, of course it won't, because the calendar year hits 2 fiscal years. This is a long-term debt for Part A. This is going to again tie to the report on outstanding bonds that you did for the state treasurer. That one was due in August. You might want to pull out your work papers for that, and I'll walk you through what this form is asking for. The first thing that we want is the outstanding amount July 1 of 2017. That's in column A. And as you can see, there are some areas that you can type in what you need for this particular city. They typed in lines 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Column B is the amount that was issued during this year. Now that's the amount of principal that was issued. In column C, the amount of principal that was retired or was paid. So each of those would probably have something paid unless it was a new issue that was done in like May or June. You may not have any retirement in the same fiscal year if it's a new issue. Columns D, E, F, G are the amount that's outstanding June 30 by issue. Then we're going to jump to column H, and we're going to see that is the amount of interest that was paid. In the retired column C, that's the amount of principal paid. Column H is the amount of interest paid. Then if you go down on the bottom, you can see again the system is going to total it for you. And these totals should match what you put into the state treasurer's report. So the amount outstanding, D, E, F, and G, are going to match what you told to the state treasurer, but they may have a little bit different breakdown there, but the down total should be the same. If you need to have a little bit of help with worksheet on the debt, we do have one that we've made up for you. Now, going to the short-term debt, which is part B of this particular section, we need to know how much was outstanding July 1 of 17 and how much was outstanding June 30. They don't need to know about how much you paid. They can figure that one out here, I guess, but they do not want you to include stamped warrants, and I would imagine very few of you have stamped warrants. If you do and you have questions, give me a call. Maybe this is another time that you want to save your work. The next section, part 6, is going to be a calculation of your debt limit, and they use the assessed valuation for that. And they made sure that you know which year to use. It'd be January 1 of 2016 if you want to do it by hand. But again, if you have put name on page 1 and have the internet accessed, this should have already been populated and the calculation is done. And then it's transferred to page 1 automatically for you. So let's go look at page 1 first of all. if you are in this community, your ending cash balance should be $954,217. The first column is your governmental, the second column is your enterprise. So that's how much cash you should have. Unless you have money that is not budgeted for internal services, then you need to list it in this first slot. The second one is for pension funds, if you have any of those. Now, these pension funds would be funds that are from 410 pension programs. If you have private purpose trust funds for some reason, again, we need to disclose those. And the last one is if you have any agencies. So this is going to be added all together, these 5 segments that I have circled, and those are going to be the totals that you're going to break down into still another format on page 10. These are the instructions on the instruction tab within your book that says, as of this year, that should be 2018 instead of 2016. You need to add those all together and put it onto page 10. That looks like this. Again, we're at the bottom of page 10, and you're going to see that bonds and interest funds are the first designation. So if you have any bonds or any interest on hand in your overall total, then by all means you need to include it here. The second breakdown is bond construction funds. Bond and interest funds might be in your debt service fund, where bond construction funds might be in your capital project funds. Pension and retirement funds are probably going to be a special revenue fund. And then anything that's left over would be the calculation here. And as you can see, because this particular example does not have any of those external funds listed on page 1, this total comes to the $954,000, which is included in all of the city coffers. The last part of page 10 gives you the remarks. And in this area, if you've had any changes to that beginning fund balance, we've talked about that a couple of times in the different videos, but if there's any change from what you had on last year's annual financial report for your ending cash balance to this year, a prior period adjustment is what some auditors might call it, then you need to make a notation here as to why that was done. The other thing is if there's any special comments that you want to make, why you have an extraordinary large cash balance at the end of the year, or why you have deficit fund balance at the end of the year. If there are some extenuating circumstances that you wish to note, this is the place that you would note it. Now we're going back to page 1. Sorry for flipping back and forth like that, but that's the way the form works. And you'll see that all your governmental came in, all your proprietary is in, and all the totals are right there. However, column D on your form is blank. Mine got filled in already, but yours will be blank, and you need to put in either the certified budget, which was passed in March of 2017, or the final amended budget. You don't have a choice. You take the latter. So if you amended your budget 2 or 3 times, you take the third budget amendment and lay it into these forms in column D. Then you'll be able to see side by side the total that was actually expended versus the amount that you budgeted. And hopefully the total that you expended on the expenditures does not exceed what you budgeted in any of the program areas. Then on the very bottom of page 1, again, this is all filled in for you from page 10. Here's that error page. Yours should look like this one. If there is anything text in there that you see, you need to go back and correct that portion. The definition on many of these error pages has been greatly improved, and it will not only tell you what the error was, but it will give you suggestions as to how to correct them. Again, if you need assistance with that, don't be afraid to call us. Onto the publications. If more than 200, you must publish and include a proof of publication when you submit the report to the auditor, and you only need to submit page 1. If you're less than 200, then post as required by your local ordinance. That's in 3 different places, including the certification of that posting when submitting the report by mailing it in. This is the very bottom of page 1. I believe that this should be done prior to your actual publication, so the citizens also know you are the one that's responsible for doing this. When you plan on posting it or publishing it, may have to wait until after it's in the newspaper, and you indicate if it's posted or published. The rest of the information is traditional. The last one I would like to remind you to take care of, you need to have the signature of the mayor or other city official, and you need to print as well as have that person sign so that we can tell who actually signed for you and then the date that it was signed. It is not required to have the council approve this. It is really a good idea to go over this report with the council. We would recommend that you give them all 10 pages of the report. So before we end here, we have a couple more things to do after your publication. After you receive your proof of publication from the newspaper, you can take the page out of the newspaper if you don't want to wait for that proof of pub and mail that in, as long as the date that the newspaper was published is on the page that you send with page 1, the signed page 1 of the financial report. So with that, we'll close this video out, and the last video will discuss how to actually do the electronic submission.